Test, test. Just test. Test, test. So, Matt, are we good on your end? Alrighty. So, good afternoon, folks. We'll be starting into land use in just a moment. I think we're live streaming now and recording. It's about 1:02. We're coming out of recess from our morning sessions for the purposes of hearing several land use cases. Amanda, could you call the roll, please? Here.
Here. Here.
All right, we've got quite a few, 5 items to hear today. The first is a request for consideration to be included in the economic development zone. The others are rezones, some with plats, some without. But generally, each hearing is run in the same sequence. The staff will present background on the material. We'll ask the applicants to present. We may or may not have questions from our side of the table to staff or the applicant. We'll open for public comment. Once public comment is closed, we'll ask the applicant or staff to address issues that may have come up. We again may have questions, and then we'll make a determination to either approve with conditions, deny an application, or continue it if we feel we don't have enough information to make a final decision today. So those are kind of the general rules of the road. When we get to public comment, we generally ask for folks to give their name, address, and keep their comments to about 3 minutes. With that, I would accept a motion. Well, we're not really in hearing for the request for the EDZ, so that's simply a request. But Matt, if you could talk us through that, thanks.
Sure. So, okay, we got the audio. Commissioners and visitors, CDS has not processed a formal request to have a property considered for the economic development zone since its inception, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago. Not sure on the exact timeline on that. But this is a very particular case in general, and I'll walk you through that right now. So this is generally an EDZ inclusion request for RV storage on County Road 13, located within the Forel subdivision. The landowner is also the applicant, Cody Owen, and he is here today. I'll walk you through some of the inconsistencies that I've found in my research. That this subdivision, when it was initially applied for, was denied by the BOCC in 2000. But somehow a document was recorded later in that year to create this subdivision with a reception number and signatures from every valid signing body for a plat. There was a bank foreclosure. I apologize, I don't have my pointer on me right now. That was approximately in this location that separated 26 acres into 16 and 10. With the subject 10 acres being located in the center of the property, subject to this request. The owner, Cody Owen, went through the process to get this property rezoned from XXNX, which for those who aren't familiar is a zoning district that does not qualify for any other districts, essentially. It's no zoning district. That rezoning was completed as well with a subdivision exemption from Colorado Revised Statutes 30-28-101, which essentially defines what a subdivision is. This was completed in 2014.
Yeah, so the zoning that's XX or Correct. Not zoned has no uses by right.
Correct.
No special uses, so essentially it
Correct.
could only remain vacant land under regulation. Amanda, what's on the screen, is that what's being pushed out over video? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Got it. So this is just an aerial of the subject 10 acres that we have. I will note that we do have a floodplain, which I'll show in a little bit more detail on the next slide, that cuts through the property. It's currently being used for residential. This is where the residence existed when the initial plat was filed for in 1999. And that is the only residence that's located within the subdivision, which creates essentially a conflict between what is defined as a subdivision when especially this is the only residence in that entire 3-lot subdivision. So to provide a little bit more context, I'll walk you through these 3 maps here, that we have a variety of zoning districts even in this 3-lot subdivision itself. I'll familiarize you with the label of PUD on the left here. That is Hitchin Hay, and on the south is Creekside Community Church in this A2 zone lot. So the only residential use on or in this subdivision is for the applicant's subject property. Here, because residential subdivisions are excluded from the economic development zone, we even find in this instance that the economic development zone is even further east of the subject property as well. And with the floodplain completely bisecting the property, this request is very simple: to only utilize this area for RV storage. To walk you through CDS's decision-making in this process, by the economic development zone overlay regulations within the zoning regulations, the applicant must meet with the CDS director to determine if this request is appropriate. However, the course of action that is suggested is a county-initiated rezone that CDS is to complete. This request was denied for that reason on April 4th. Following that, the next course of action as defined by Article 9 of the zoning regs is to request the BOCC if it's appropriate for a county-initiated rezone, again, to be processed by CDS.
And if I may, Greg had come up and actually had a conversation. Since this was the first request for inclusion, we had no standard practice,
Correct.
no general expectations of what would or wouldn't be, that just felt it would be easier to bring it forward to us, so we had a full public discussion of this type of action. So.
Correct. And just to go back on the very obvious statement, those fall after the regulations I've cited previously, that if a property falls within a platted residential subdivision or a PUD, that it will not be considered for the economic development zone. So with that in mind, the recommendation that CDS has for this course of action is to deny the request for a county-initiated rezone to the economic development zone. Have the applicant make a recommendation to the applicant to apply for a vacation of the 4-0 plat, as it's not being used as a residential subdivision. We don't feel that that is serving a purpose per Colorado Revised Statutes 30-28-101, as well as completing on behalf of the applicant a rezoning to EDZ per Article 9 C4. That's in conjunction with a site development plan that would be ordinarily required with any EDZ development altogether. Whether or not that this is done concurrently or staggered or on a schedule that is to be determined by the board or by the CDS director, that is relatively to be decided. However, these 3 applications CDS believes should be completed in order for that use to be implemented on that property. And that'll conclude my presentation.
Thank you, Matthew. Any questions or comments from here? No? Okay. Then the applicant was present. Sir, yeah. It invites you up just to introduce yourself, and if you have anything you'd like. Yes, please do. Just kind of name, address, and then if you've got anything else you'd like to present regarding this.
Okay, so my name is Cody Owen, address 36250 County Road 13, Elizabeth, Colorado 80107. And I mean, that's pretty, Matt did a pretty good job of, I think, giving an overview of what we're trying to do. Pretty straightforward with the property, the 10 acres, the way that it is. The creek essentially divides it down the middle, so we're just simply trying to put a storage lot on that west, northwest, west 2 acres approximately.
I guess if I was tracking north of you is Hitchin Post Hay,
Yes, sir.
a separate owner,
Yep, Hitchin Post Hay to the north and Creekside Community Church to the south.
and you only own the parcel in the center?
Just the center.
Okay,
Yep.
so vacation of the plat for the entire subdivision, I'm sure would require the agreement of your neighbors to the north and south that are part of that subdivision?
I would imagine so, yes.
Well, Hitchin, I think they're a PUD now, so they've already redone theirs.
Okay.
They're PUD and then we're AR and then the church is the A2, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Have you discussed this with the church at all, or?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I would say if we move forward, one of the conditions would be that the other owner within the subdivision agreed to the dissolution of the subdivision,
I'm just really going to expand on what Chris said there. Is it's hard for me to recognize the right to put this in an EDZ unless you vacate that current zoning residential plat. Then the reason for that is that was exempted from the start when the EDZ was approved. And it's in the EDZ area, but it's very specifically states in the EDZ that you cannot use the EDZ if it's in a platted residential subdivision or
Okay.
a PUD. So in my mind, if you're going to go this route, you need to go the PUD route, or you got to vacate the subdivision or something. It would be very difficult for me to vote positively on including this unless all of the rules are followed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know that was all set up way before my time, and I don't even know why it was done that way. But
we went
We
through
understand.
a very lengthy process with Hitchin Post Hay in their kind of XX zoning, so it does appear there's a lot of history on this one, but
yeah,
I mean the PUD, or excuse me, EDZ did envision mixed use, which kind of exists already, so that's, but I would say just while you're up here now, if we do approve to move forward to bring this into the EDZ, that's not an approval of the final use and site plans.
okay,
And it's good to know that you envision the use as RV storage, but this wouldn't constitute approval, that's what would be approved
okay,
at the final look at the site plan.
all right.
Do you have anything else? Okay. Yeah, with that, I'd open this up for public comment, and then if there's things that need to be addressed after public comment, I may bring you back up.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So at this time, is there any public comment regarding this application? Okay, seeing none, I'd close public comment. Any discussion at the table?
I am not against what you want to do, but you got to do it in the right sequence of events. And so I would have great difficulty voting yes for this until you either vacate it or get the consensus or something that, or PUD. And again, I'm not against what you want to do, but because of the history of this area and what Chris said also is hitching posts, it took them years to get that thing sorted out. And regrettably, you've got a piece of land there that has got some history with it.
Yeah, I think you know, we've looked at other pieces of property that they wanted to put into EDZ and do things that were in residential subdivisions, and we haven't approved those. So to me, it's hard to justify doing something different than what we've already done.
Yeah, I think right now we're at the step of vacating the plat, if that's what you wish to proceed with, and then if those that are subject to that plat, which sounds like it's just yourself and the church, if you have agreement there, then I think we're at least making steps towards breaking up what was a residential subdivision, and then we can look at EDZ at that point. Yeah, I was going to say I sense it's premature to ask for the inclusion, but I would think proceeding with the plat vacation is probably the right first step, and then if we have agreement amongst the property owners that that's what they'd like to happen, and I think it's just the two of you, then I think then we can move forward to look at the EDZ piece. Conceptually, I don't have a big issue with it, but if we're changing what the ground that people are actually occupying underneath them, we need to know what their thoughts are. So. Does that give you what you need to proceed?
So in other words, you're confirming the recommendation as presented?
Yeah, and then we'll, if the plat comes forward vacation, then we'll look at the EDZ piece of this.
Understood.
Thank you.
I don't know if we
Mr. Chairman, we don't need a motion or anything like that on this.
No, I think we just got.
No, I think the discussion on the application.
Yeah, so if our regulations don't allow bring in a residential subdivision for consideration, we really need to work that piece first. All righty. Excuse me. Alrighty, the next item we have up is a hearing for rezone. It's the Toscano rezone 21-0080. I'd accept a motion to open public hearing on this item.
I'll make a motion. We open the public hearing on Toscano rezone case number RZ-21-0080.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open public hearing on the Toscano rezone. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're in public hearing on this item. Same general process that would follow. So, Matthew, I think you're teed up for all of these today. So.
Most of them.
Okay.
I'll continue again to the board and visitors that we have here today. This is the Toscano rezone RZ-21-0080. Again, this is a rezoning request that is in conjunction with an administrative minor plat approval, MP 210081. This will be a rezoning from Agriculture A to Agriculture Residential AR. The location is 22903 County Road 1521 outside of Elbert. The landowner is Kristen and Steve Toscano, and the representative in this case is Tom Maroney. Generally speaking, the location is just due southwest of Elbert on County Road 1521. A pre-application meeting for this application was held on May 13th of last year. A formal application was filed with CDS on December 16th of last year. We had a single referral process from December 20th to January 10th. And the Planning Commission recommended approval on April 19th, leading us to today at the Board of County Commissioners on the 27th. I'd like to touch on that the noticing was an issue for cancellation of meetings in March. However, the noticing has been completed in accordance with the zoning and subdivision regulations for these meetings. To give you an outline of the site itself, this is a 60-acre underlying property with the 20 acres that is highlighted in red subject to this proposal. The 40 acres on the west, located over here with an existing residence and some outbuildings, will not be touched as a part of this request. This area itself was just 20.9 acres. To cover some of the zoning that we have in the area, as this is a rezoning case, this property is directly across from Academy East. Multiple filings on the east and the south, and there are some smaller AR rezones directly to the south as well, creating a little bit of consistency, a range of densities in the area as well. Looking into the site plan exhibit itself, this is a relatively straightforward situation where access will be applied for and essentially approved upon review for both lots off of County Road 1521, with an access easement being dedicated as a part of the minor plat application for the 40 acres that are to the west or behind these two parcels. They will both be 10.45 acres, and to my knowledge, there was no issues in terms of right-of-way dedication on this application. From the referral period, the Colorado Division of Water Resources, this was a item that had come up during the Planning Commission hearing. Water was declared to be adequate for this future subdivision. However, there was a general concern made with that adequacy letter that the well was to be re-permitted for the 40 acres that is not subject to the proposal. When the well permit was initially filed for, it was 60 acres, and that correction needs to be made with the State Division of Water. There were no other major concerns raised during the referral period that couldn't be addressed with simple acknowledgments or simple inclusions in terms of the Mountain View Electric asking for 10-foot easements on the edge of the plat. However, that's applicable to the minor plat opposed to the rezoning application that we're hearing today. So in looking at the review criteria for rezoning applications, I'll walk through the 6 criteria that we have. In relation to the comprehensive plan, for a lot of these rezone minor plat type applications, we really only have 2 really key comprehensive plan topic areas that we look at. The first of which being that new development should conform to state laws covering domestic water supply and septic systems. All water approvals have to go through the state, and all septic approvals go through our own county public health department. Those bases are covered. And also as well that new development should minimize negative impacts to adjacent agricultural lands and designated open space. With the density proposed, CDS feels that this is an appropriate request. In terms of compatibility with surrounding land uses, as I touched on before, we have a wide range of densities in the area from Academy East to some larger agricultural lands in excess of 40 acres. We feel that this is a very good balance for the area given that there are a number of 10-acre parcels located immediately to the south. In looking at the provision of public services, we had a very comprehensive referral period from the referral agencies that we had contacted. It was determined from CDS and the responses that we received that AR zoning for 2 lots would not adversely impact public services. And the same goes for the environment as well, that the impact with these 2 lots would not necessitate anything substantial to the environment as well. In looking at traffic congestion, touching on the same density conversation, we believe that the 2 additional lots will not create significant impact, and that a concern that came up during the Planning Commission in terms of County Road 1521 takes probably a good 90-degree bend just north of the property. That will be looked at the time of an access permit being filed with the county to make sure that there's adequate separation between that turn radius on 1521 and any future driveway that would be located on the lots proposed. And in general, looking at health, safety, and welfare, We're making the argument that a marginal increase in density while retaining that agricultural context in an area that has seen this mild development is a very appropriate request. That any concerns that were shared about this proposed two-lot subdivision would have a minimal impact on county or other residents in the area. With that in mind, Community and Development Services recommends that the Board of County Commissioners approve the requested Toscano rezone subject to the following conditions. The applicant will be required to remove the public hearing sign within 7 days of this decision. The rezoning shall not become effective until all fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and the rezone exhibit is recorded. That recordation to occur within 180 days of Board of County Commissioners approval. The condition that has been added since the discussions during the Planning Commission that CDS has provided with proof of application filed with the State Division of Water Resources for re-permitting of the well that was discussed by the Division of Water Resources, well permit number 208794, prior to the recordation of both exhibits. And that concludes my presentation.
Questions up here? Just a couple of quick ones. Is the applicant, are they the ones that own the property, the remaining, or do they reside in the home that's to the west?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the recommendation of the Planning Commission was
to approve.
okay. That's what I assumed, but it just jumped from staff to us. So, alrighty. Is the applicant rep present or applicant? Oh, is the light on? Yeah. Okay. Oh. Now it's off. Green.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Stephen Toscano, 22903, County Road 1521, Elbert. I'm the owner of the property.
Alrighty. Is there anything that staff did not present already?
No, I think between Matt and Tommy and all the parties that be, it's gone pretty smooth.
Alrighty. Well, appreciate that. I guess with that, I'll ask for public comment, sure. And then if we have some that you need to respond to or staff, I'll call you back up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty. We did have one person that signed up for public comment. It was Susan Glenn. Oh, okay. Alrighty. Alrighty. Do we have anybody in the room that would like to make comment on this? Alrighty. Seeing none, I'd close public comment. Any questions or comments from the table?
I really don't have any comments other than this is pretty standard application.
Yeah, very, very minimal impact in an area where there's already development adjacent. So I would accept a motion on this application.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the Toscano RZ 210080 or 80 approve this application.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the Toscano rezone. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. I'll take a motion to close public hearing on this item.
I'll make a motion. We close public hearing on Toscano rezone RZ-21-0080.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close public hearing on the Toscano rezone. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Alrighty, the next item up we have is again a rezone of a smaller acreage. It's Cornerstone RZ 21-0060. I would accept a motion to open public hearing on this item.
I'll make a motion. We open public hearing on Cornerstone rezone case number RZ-21-0060.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to enter public hearing on this item. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We're in public hearing. Again, same general process. Matthew, if you could present the application, please.
Sure. Board and visitors, this is the application for the Cornerstone rezone, RZ210085. This is a rezoning case, again, from Agriculture A to Agriculture Residential AR. The location is just down the road, 32471 North Elbert Road. I will make a comment that there might be some inconsistencies in some of the documents that you've viewed, that there are two separate case numbers within CDS for identifying this application. Fortunately, we have pretty outdated software that we are working with, so therefore there are two numbers that we have attributed either as 0060 or 0085. They will identify the same application. Generally speaking, the location, again, is just down North Elbert Road, short drive. In this particular case, Justin and Stacy Upchurch are the landowners. The application is represented by CJ Kirst, and there is an administrative minor plat, MP 210086, that is also concurrent with this rezoning approval. Pre-application meeting was held on September 10th of 2020. A formal application was filed with CDS on August 23rd of 2021. There was a single referral period from August 23rd to September 13th. Additional time in there to satisfy some water requirements as well. The Planning Commission recommended approval on April 19th. The discussion point of note that I would like to bring up, that an attendee had spoken against the project in terms of he had owned the adjacent propane business and raised concerns about separation between future homes and his business where propane is being stored outdoors. However, there will be little conversation within this presentation on that matter, as that's something that would be looked at and discussed during the time of building permit approval for any future development, noting that at any time an ADU could be constructed in close proximity to there, but also go through the same type of review as any further subdivision and house built on a future lot. So to look at the property, we have a pretty irregular shape here. Looking at some of the propane businesses that I touched on are located right around here. And this is generally the area with North Elbert Road coming down from the far southern reach of Kiowa south towards Elbert. Total area that's encompassed by this rezoning request is 47.3 acres. Again, in looking at the zoning, that we do have two industrial zone propane uses directly adjacent, but we also have a wide variety of subdivisions within the area that there is some incremental density coming to the area. In looking at the exhibit, there is nothing that is really of note or concern really. During the referral process, getting the specifications for a type 1 gravel road sorted out to be able to access the property, and an additional easement to access the current residents on the parcel 1 or the back lot essentially. What had come up during the referral period was a matter of verbiage. This is currently labeled as a viewshed easement. It was initially labeled as a no-build area. CDS is comfortable with either. Viewshed easement was a suggestion provided to essentially remove the language of a no-build area, but upon revisiting, we are comfortable if it's a no-build area or an easement of an applicable sort. So from the referral period...
Just to make sure I understand, go back to that map again, please.
Sure.
Okay, the cross-hatched area, is that the no-build zone?
Correct.
Okay.
And that was a request by the applicant. That did not come from the referral period. That was a request that any future builder on parcel 2 doesn't build within that area.
And is that because of the propane business, or that's not related, is it?
No, that was just a request to the applicant.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. So from the referral period, the only notable items were from adding easements to satisfy Core Electric Cooperative in terms of plats. Not really applicable to the rezoning, but that is covered within the minor plat review. Public Works had requested that a Type 1 gravel road be constructed to serve the 3 properties, lots 1, 2, and 3, that we have, at least in this portion, that all 3 of these lots are accessed through the same Type 1 gravel road, whereas Lot 4 itself would be able to get its own individual driveway off of Elbert Road. And the Elbert County School District, the C2 district, had requested impact fees, which has been reflected in the conditions as well. In going over the review criteria, the proposed rezoning in relation to the comprehensive plan, the 2 items that I had touched on in the previous application, that new developments conforming to domestic water supply and septic systems, as well as new developments mitigating impacts to surrounding agricultural and residential lands. In general, looking at the compatibility with surrounding land uses, this property is very proximate to the town of Kiowa, which has some of the highest density within the county. In looking at that and some of the larger parcels that we have radiating further to the west on Highway 86, that we feel it's appropriate to propose 10-acre lots in this area. In looking at public services and also looking at the environment as well, from the responses we had received from the referral agencies, no concerns were raised on the provision of public services or for the environment as well. In looking at traffic congestion, Public Works was keen to sign off, even though there was a proposal for 2 access points for the subdivision. They signed off to have the driveway for Lot 4 and the Type 1 gravel road for lots 1 through 3. There was no additional concerns about traffic congestion raised during the pre-application phase or during the referral process. And in looking at the health, safety, and welfare component of the review criteria, we feel as well that the marginal increase in density in this area where this mild development has been occurring as well is an appropriate request. Therefore, Community and Development Services, as well as the Planning Commission, recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve the requested cornerstone rezone subject to the following conditions. Again, that the applicant will be required to remove the public hearing sign within 7 days of the board's decision. The rezoning will not be effective until fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and the exhibit is recorded, and that recordation shall occur within 180 days of this approval. And the condition I spoke on before, that CDS has provided a receipt that stated impact fees from the C2 school district are paid prior to recordation of the final plat. And with that, that'll conclude my presentation.
Questions for Matt before we move on? Okay, CJ, you're the rep.
CJ Kirst, Tahoe Consulting, 5730 East Otero Avenue, Suite 200, Centennial, Colorado, 80112. I don't have anything more to add. Matt did a good job of explaining everything. We are in agreement with the conditions of approval. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for CJ?
Just a curiosity question. The propane businesses that are adjacent to this, are you concerned in any way about building permits in that close proximity?
No, there's a adequate setback already in the AR zone district. They have their own setback requirements as well with those propane tanks. So I think one of the things we talked about in the Planning Commission is, that those 2 setbacks combined really do create a pretty good distance between tanks and future structures, but that it would be evaluated, closer at the time of building permit application.
I believe it's 50 feet on the side and rear for those, so.
Right.
And his tanks are quite a ways in
Right.
from the property lines. The source of water is Denver Aquifer, I believe?
Lower Dawson.
Lower Dawson, okay. And the property owners living in the existing home, or?
Parcel 1, yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to open up for public comment at this time. Okay. And then Deidre House. Yeah, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Deidre House. I live on 9448 County Road 134. If you look at the Google Maps again, I live, a little bit too far. I live just west of here, a little bit southwest of here. The only thing, it's more of a request, but this entire area is infested with prairie dogs. And so when they begin to build on this area, if they can do something to mitigate that, to get rid of the prairie dogs so that they don't come on to everybody else's land when they start building. Otherwise, I have no problem with it.
Well, just so I'm clear, the prairie dog, they're on the property that we're considering right now?
They're that whole,
That whole area, or just?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty. That's nobody's great desire. Okay. Do we have any other public comment at this time? CJ, did you want to address the prairie dog issue at all? Or, I mean, nobody likes them, so I'd warn you not to.
There's some
say you're going to care
people
and feed for them.
up that way that like them. I honestly, I don't know that it'll be a problem for them to do what's ever necessary.
Okay, thank you.
So you're going to bring out some pet coyotes?
Yeah, I'm going to cage them up and bring them by.
Maybe not near the propane tanks, but but with that, I'll close public comment. Is there any other final comments or questions from the table? Okay, seeing none, I would accept a motion on the Cornerstone rezone.
I'll make a motion, we approve the Cornerstone rezone case RZ-21-0060.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the rezone 21-0060, which I guess is also referred to as 0085 in some cases. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. I would accept a motion to close public hearing on
I'll make
this.
a motion, we close public hearing on Cornerstone rezone case RZ-21-0060 and 85.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close public hearing on this item. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're out of public hearing on the Cornerstone rezone. Alrighty, next item up again is the Rockhaven rezone and preliminary and final plating, 21-0069. I'd accept a motion to open public hearing on this item.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we open the hearing on Rockhaven rezone and final plat, case PD-21-0069 and FP-21-0071.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open the Rockhaven rezone and plating. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're in public hearing. Again, kind of the same process for everyone.
All right. If you haven't gotten sick of my voice yet, we have the Rockhaven rezone and final plat, case numbers PD-21-0069 and FP-21-0071. Again, this is a rezoning and final plat application. This will be a rezoning again from agriculture A to agricultural residential AR, and 7 proposed lots on 79.3 acres, a general location of 741 County Road 146, Elizabeth. The applicant and property owner is Chad Roach. Generally speaking, the project location is on County Road 146, relatively equidistant. The access is relatively equidistant to County Roads 3 and 5. just south of the Ponderosa Park subdivision. A pre-application meeting was held with staff on May 27th of last year, with a formal application filed on September 29th of 2021. There were 2 referral periods that were conducted per regulation from September to mid-October, and again at the beginning of this year as well. During the Planning Commission hearing, they recommended approval of the rezone and final plat applications. There were general concerns on an additional statement that was made in the final Division of Water approval. I'll touch on those details in a little while. I will touch on that this was another one of the applications that was continued due to a notification error. I can assert that the noticing for these hearings, Planning Commission on the 19th and this hearing again on the 27th, were completed in accordance with the zoning and subdivision regulations. In looking at the property itself, it is a flagpole shape roughly, with access going straight directly to County Road 146, with a bulk of the acreage being located some distance back from County Road 146, wedged in between a number of larger parcels. Zoning in general is a mixed bag over here. We have a number of different zoning districts in the area. We have a number of smaller subdivisions in Fleming and Robinson that are around that 10 to 20 acre range, as well as smaller subdivisions in Pawnee Hills, and even smaller than that in Ponderosa Park Estates as well to the north. There's a wide variety of density that we have in this vicinity essentially. This is a relatively new conversation that had come up to Community and Development Services over the last couple months in reviewing applicable sections of code and really looking at some of these proposals that we have that are above a minor plat classification, 5 or more lots, but not large enough to necessitate significant impact or infrastructure improvements, that we feel it would be appropriate to waive the preliminary plat. This was discussed with the applicant, and this request was approved on February 2nd of this year. In looking at the site plan, again, this is a rezone from A to AR. Initial conversations had led this to be considered as a planned unit development, where there was discussions about how certain standards within the zoning regulations could be varied, whether or not a 9-acre lot would satisfy the conditions of a subdivision approval for well and septic, as well as meeting the standards of AR zoning. Through discussions with the applicant and working on this was the final design that was settled upon, doing 7 lots of 10 plus acres, one of which being 19 acres to conform with the zoning and subdivision regulations. I will note that there is an existing residence located on lot 6. Currently, there is an application with the building department for a future accessory dwelling unit on lot 3. In my research and my calculations, this property falls entirely within the setbacks of the proposed lot 3. I can discuss that a little further as we go on here. So in looking at site access, there is a very glaring issue with the subdivision as designed, but there are a lot of practical constraints to be in consideration here. The access road as it is proposed is approximately 3,600 feet long. Per our subdivision regulations, we can't really go beyond a quarter mile in length at 1320. In this particular situation, noting that there are some remedies available within the subdivision regulations based on hardship to be able to consider varying certain standards, I have proposed within the staff report that the board consider this variation as there is a practical hardship in this situation, that access points, there's not really a suitable second access location that Public Works or the Elizabeth Fire Department were able to identify. At this particular point, Elizabeth Fire has been generally supporting of this application as long as their fire flow restrictions are met, which the applicant has indicated that he is willing to pay the $1,040 per lot to meet the fire flow requirements. Generally, there were concerns that adequate turnaround wasn't provided. However, looking at the exhibit that was provided and the most recent one that CDS has been able to review, there is the sufficient 100-foot diameter radius that is required by Elizabeth Fire. Really what I've provided in this drawing here is how these lots would be accessed, with lot 3 being a multi-shaded lot here, that this lot could be accessed either off of the private road that will be put in or through the access easement as well, just to give you an idea of how these different lots would be accessed. In looking at this, in looking at other properties, there were no found ingress or egress looking through any of the plats that were of record for any of the surrounding properties as well. Something that we will work on with the applicant in terms of a red line to a plat exhibit would be identifying and labeling underground gas right-of-way that bisects the property in certain locations. In looking at the referral period, the concerns raised by the Division of Water resulted in an augmentation plan being completed. A further request was that a well on the property was to be re-permitted, as well as an additional well on the property to be filed for a well abandonment. The applicant has agreed to do those items. From the public health standpoint, OWTS would be applied for, on-site wastewater would be applied for at the time of individual development of each lot. The Fire Protection District, as I touched on the previous slide, is generally supportive of this application as long as their fire flow requirements are met, and that the exhibit clearly shows the turnaround at the end of the private drive. Public Works Department had no general concerns as long as the Elizabeth Fire Department had their fire flow requirements met. Core Electric Cooperative required certain easements to be located on the property, either 10 or 15 feet. Those have been reflected on the final plat document. Between the assessor's office and the school district, responses were not collected from those agencies. In going over the rezone criteria, I'll touch on the comprehensive plan items with the final plat criteria. In looking at the surrounding property in terms of compatibility of land uses, there are many lots and many subdivisions for that matter that have lots that have densities less than 10 acres, and there are also parcels that are in excess of 40 acres as well. There's a lot of development in this area given the periphery of Douglas County as well as the town of Elizabeth, that this type of density has been seen in this area and appears to be appropriate. In looking at the provision of public services as well as the environment, that public services in that sense, we're not proposing central water or sewer here, that development of individual wells and individual septic would be handled on an individual basis when individual development of each lot would occur. And again, with the impact to the environment, since we're really only looking at agricultural or residential uses in this subdivision, we believe that the impact to the environment will be minimal. We didn't collect any comments from the Conservation District or from Parks or Wildlife that would indicate otherwise. In terms of traffic congestion, we believe, and supported by our referral agencies, that the density proposed here does not warrant a concern towards traffic congestion. A traffic study, traffic letter was not required as a part of this application, and defaulting on the guidance of the Public Works Road and Bridge Department, that we were comfortable with the design as proposed, how it relates to traffic congestion. And in terms of looking at health, safety, or welfare, it's the same argument I've been making for a lot of these rezone plat applications, that with this density proposed, where we are seeing a wide variety of densities from smaller than 10 and also greater than 40, that we feel it's appropriate and not detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of current or future residents of the county. Because this is including a major plat application, I will go over the final plat criteria as it relates to Article 1C of the subdivision regulations. In terms of water supply, this is a big focus of these subdivision applications, in particular this final plat. And I'd like to speak to the fact that the applicant has received all necessary approvals from the Groundwater Commission in their augmentation plan to service these 7 lots. Following that augmentation plan approval, as I touched on before, a well does need to be abandoned for that augmentation plan to be effective, as well as for the current lot or current well on the property to be re-permitted as well. Those have both been included as conditions of approval for this application, but in general, the Division of Water can attest that 300 years of water supply is guaranteed for this area. In looking at sewage disposal, no central sewage system is proposed here. Each individual lot will be looked at the appropriate time of development. So the Elbert County Public Health Department will look at those on an individual case-by-case basis. In looking at topographical conditions or hazards, there were not any specific requests made during the referral period for anything that goes beyond what the zoning or subdivision regulations state. We didn't find anything within the soil or the hazards essentially that would be of concern or of note at this time. And in general, looking at the compliance with the zoning regulations and the subdivision regulations, really at this point, we feel that this application is compliant with both. However, the standard within the subdivision regulations that roadways cannot exceed a quarter-mile in length, we will leave up to the board to decide whether that's an appropriate variation as a part of this request. And in general, looking at the comprehensive plan, noting that new development again should conform to state laws covering domestic water and septic systems, as well as new developments limiting or minimizing impacts to surrounding agricultural properties or open space. With that in mind, Community and Development Services, as well as the Planning Commission on the 19th, recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve of the requested Rock Haven rezone and final plat subject to the final conditions. The applicant will be required to remove the public hearing sign within 7 days of this decision from the Board of County Commissioners. The rezoning and final plat shall not become effective until all fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and the exhibits are recorded. I apologize, it appears there is a typo not stating rezoning and final plat. I'd like you to consider both of those terms there. And then that recordation for all of that appropriate documentation occurring within the 180 days of the Board of County Commissioners' approval. Further on the conditions that have stemmed from the referral process, that CDS will need proof from the Elizabeth Fire Protection District that fire flow requirements have been met, as the applicant has indicated that he would like to pay the $1,040 per lot as requested by the district. Essentially, that would be a receipt provided to us that fire flow impact fee has been paid, as well as making a payment to the building department for difference in impact fees between an ADU and a large lot single family home prior to recordation of both exhibits. As I touched on before, a building permit was filed for an ADU on the property, which is allowable within the zoning district to have an unrestricted sized ADU located. In looking at where this house would be sited on the property, it would fall as a single family home on lot 3. Therefore, CDS is recommending that the difference in impact fees between what is now considered an ADU and what will be considered upon approval a single family home, that difference in impact fees and essentially assessment is accounted for with this approval. And further touching on the augmentation plan approval, that CDS has provided with proof of application filed with the State Division of Water Resources for the re-permitting of well 164346 prior to the recordation of both exhibits, as well as CDS receiving proof of a well abandonment report as requested by the State Division of Water Resources for well permit 23047 prior to the recordation of both exhibits. And that'll conclude my presentation.
Thank you, Matthew. Questions for? Yeah, just Matthew, for the ADU, is that just a permit that's been pulled, or is construction occurred? And it might be a better.
I might have the applicant touch on that.
All righty. For now, then, I'd like to invite the applicant or representative forward.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Chad Roach, 2329 South Evans Way in Franktown, Colorado, 80116. My family and I have lived in Franktown for about 5 years, so we're looking forward to just hopping over the fence to the Elizabeth area here, just a few miles from our current home. We have a pile of kids in our family, so we're expecting our 5th this fall, and we're just looking to build a larger home on some property where we could raise them. The actual name behind the subdivision, Rockhaven, last name Roach, it's an Irish name. It literally means rock or rock. And so we thought about naming it Roach Haven, but then for other reasons thought, you know what, maybe we go back to the old Irish definition of that name and call it Rock Haven, just as a place to raise our children in the coming years. So there you go. You probably know why we picked that name. So we're looking forward to being here. We do not intend to hold any of the lots on this subdivision out for sale. It will actually be my family and some extended family members that will be building here kind of over the course of time, not necessarily all right away, but my parents will actually join us on one of the lots and build there, and then my sister and brother-in-law will join us. So that's kind of the plan for that, to just build that out for our family to build on some of those lots. Just kind of touching on the practical note of the ADU, because I know that was brought up as a question. We had, of course, thought from a timing perspective we might have been sitting before the Board of County Commissioners a little while earlier. Obviously, some of the noticing, things had kind of hung up some of those dates and whatnot. So because we are allowed to do one ADU by right, we decided to start on that home, and then if the subdivision were approved, then it would become that single family lot. We fully support the condition of paying the difference in the fees. The main thought there was just from a timing and sequencing perspective. We had been gearing up on a certain timeline and thought, well, let's take advantage of the good weather and start moving some dirt. So some dirt and some foundation work is being begun on that very early on in the process. Full building permits were applied for, and full survey was done to ensure setbacks with the lot lines as proposed. So all that was taken care of carefully there. Just a kind of random note, just after the Planning Commission, talking with one of the neighbors that had come by, one of her comments to me was, I think you're really going to help property values out in the area. You guys seem like you're going to be putting something nice together, when we were talking about just kind of what our plans were as a family for building that out. And so I think that is the case. I think we're going to do a good job just helping bump property values up in the area, building some nicer, newer construction homes. I think the density, as Matthew pointed out, it's a little bit of a mixed match of everything. I think most of the lots touching us are the smaller 1 to 2 acre lots to the north of us, but it's just kind of a mix of whatever. So we feel like it really kind of fits in that neighborhood. We're kind of right square in the middle of some bigger stuff, some smaller stuff, and some similar size stuff. Also, hopefully, it's just good for the county as well. On the open space, originally when we were talking with Christina back last year, she had potentially recommended, trying to do like an open space contribution of land, but then mentioned, a cash in lieu contribution probably is everybody's favorite. So that's kind of what's proposed here. We're ready to write that check, and we're ready to get going on this project. We appreciate your consideration of it and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, just a little bit of confusion. An ADU is usually built on an existing lot, and it looks like here the ADU is going to be in a separate lot.
So it's considered an ADU today because it's the second home on an 80-acre parcel. The minute the subdivision goes through, it will be the single-family residence, and we're basically going to catch the county up on fees, so there was no funny work going on there, because technically the ADU fees are actually a little less than a single-family, which we just want to make sure the county gets caught up as if we had, done that as a single-family.
So it'll be a single-family home on a separate lot?
Correct, yeah. It'll be on Lot 3. Yes, that's correct. And it'll be, at this time, the only residence on Lot 3.
And you're comfortable with the requirement for Elizabeth Fire?
Yes, we'll be providing a cash in lieu check to Elizabeth Fire, which they're happy with there on those for the fire flow. We're comfortable with the 100-foot cul-de-sac. That will be installed. We already, from the water side of things, already instructed my attorney on the way down here to send Matthew the proof of permitting on the well repermit, and the well will be capped actually tomorrow. We had a delay on that just because they had to excavate around the old well. There was an old abandoned well on the property, but over the winter we couldn't excavate because of the frozen ground. So we got that excavated now that we've seen some thaw, and the well company will actually be capping that tomorrow. So that will be done, and that form filed with the state and submitted to CDS within 2 days.
So there is already a residence?
That's correct.
there.
There's
Is
one
that-
residence.
Is that occupied or?
It is by a family member, yes.
Oh, it's
So,
a family member of yours, okay. And then I'm just, on this zoning map up here, the undeveloped or the, whoop, if you could go back,
Which slide do you
the
want?
one that was up there,
Previous.
actually.
Okay.
The one that you just had up. Wrong direction. There we go.
There you go.
Where it says owners Chadwick Roach, is that another property you own, or is that's the title?
I think that's the ownership block for the actual property,
Okay.
yes. So I don't own any of those 4 properties down below.
Okay, just a couple of comments and some questions. I mean,
Yeah.
understand the construction of roads, even private roads, are to county standard.
Yes,
Okay.
yep. And the reason it was a private road was the county didn't want to maintain it. So in our initial pre-app meeting, they suggested us actually bringing it in as a private road. I mean, it could be made into a county road, but then the county has to maintain it.
Roger. And currently, it's a really long driveway.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
So we wouldn't have been maintaining it. Have you drafted or looked at covenants for this collection of land?
You know, we have, just because family members kind of just talked amongst ourselves and put something down that we're going to do. We decided not to record or make anything formal, but, you know, if we ever in the future were to like sell this off, we would probably consider some basic covenants at that point. But at the moment, just because it's all between family, we didn't want to do anything formally.
I'd encourage you to think about that now.
Okay,
'Cause
yeah.
Everybody's probably had a falling out with family at some point, but specifically what I was concerned with was some agreement amongst the properties that there's a responsibility to maintain a fairly substantial length of private road. So if you're all in agreement now is the best time to
Sure, that's a great
document
point.
such a thing. And the other, just not construction at this point, but would you be adverse in the gap between, or not really gap, but the boundary between lots 6 and 7 to designate a future road easement? So if development, more dense development were ever to occur south of you, we'd have the ability to have a second access to that area. It doesn't, yeah, so.
So that's right in the kind of backyard view quarter of the house, and it's pretty not fun
It's not your
topography.
private.
What's that?
Yeah, again, that area south is something you look at, but it's
Yeah.
not yours.
Yeah.
I would really like to at least have an easement designated for a future road south off that cul-de-sac. Yeah, if, for the purpose of a second access, if development occurs south of your property in the future,
Okay.
it would be lines on a map right now. It wouldn't change ownership, but it would allow a second access if we do get more dense development in that area south of your property in the future. It does happen. I mean, Ponderosa Park to your north, filing one went in the almost 60 years ago. So sometimes things change very slowly. Sometimes they change rapidly, but I would hate to have something dense show up south of you and have you sandwiched between two denser subdivisions with no way to get into you other than that one long road.
So essentially, you're saying that would end up connecting the private road through, which the difficulty there would be then there would be a lot of public traffic on a private road and could really change the maintenance equation to that. So that seems like something that would be more in the context of if that was a county road all the way through there, public county road. But
Again, I'm not
Yeah.
not asking to construct the road,
Yeah.
and it would really just be another access to the 7 lots. There's no reason why people would be circulating through your community, but it does provide a way for fire to get in or another access in the future if needed.
okay.
I'm arm twisting a little here, I understand, but I'm only asking at this point for an easement.
One of the reasons we picked the property because it had some privacy and it was there was some nice yard and wooded area there. It would be a little tough to see that turn into a road that would be publicly driven onto somebody else's lot. So
I understand that.
yeah,
People can already drive in, private road or not, it's it's privately maintained, it's still a public access.
My understanding is it could be gated, though. Is that correct? A private road could be gated?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If it were gated, yes, but.
sure. Yep.
Any questions? Yeah, I would like that as a condition that the easement be placed on the plat for potential future roadway if needed, you know.
Okay.
Between lots 6 and 7, or
Yeah, I
1
think
and 7?
Uh,
To the south or to the west?
I believe to the south would make more sense there's a
So if you can
stream that
see
kind of runs, and, I mean, you'd almost be building a bridge if you went off
right there.
the western edge, yeah.
Okay.
Just dropping off the cul-de-sac.
Now, if you're talking about fire department and stuff like that, do we want to make it a emergency access versus an access easement that somebody could use?
That would be acceptable.
I mean,
That would be acceptable to me.
that would make more sense if it got developed below and, the fire department had to get in that way as opposed to the other. I think that would be more appropriate as emergency access easement as opposed to an access easement.
And for clarity's sake, would it ever, just because I know the topography is pretty gnarly there, would it ever come back on us to be required to construct that? Or because it's an emergency access easement,
no,
nobody could
we would
force
make
us to
that
construct that? Okay.
Just an easement.
Well, then I would support an emergency
And
access.
it's emergency, I'm just very concerned about being able to get to lot 1. That's a long ways in if
Sure.
for some reason something
Got it.
happens along the way. So appreciate that, and with that, I'd open it up for public comment.
Thank you.
And then we may have you come back up for questions for staff. So at this point, I would open this for public comment. Mr. Lopez, you had signed up.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Greg Lopez, 36792 View Ridge Drive. I'm not sure if you received my document that I had submitted to the, did you get it? Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention, there is some confusion that exists between the staff and the fire department. I think if you hear what he said generally approves. He didn't say that they approved it. He said that they generally approved. Now, I don't know if you received the latest conditions from the fire department. It was dated April 13th. Did you receive that in your packet? If not, I do have a copy of it if I can give it to you.
We've got it probably at easier access than we do.
Okay.
Yeah, rather than digging through ours.
Just give you everything I submitted.
Okay.
And then at the back,
Okay.
at the back is, because it wasn't part of the original packet. But one of the things that I think it's important, I think you touched on it, Commissioner Richardson, is that public safety as it pertains to how this is going to work. I've been following this project since it's been introduced to the county. There's been some irregularities as it pertains to the process, but understanding that you have new staff and there's been turnover, I can understand why that may happen, but it still gives me pause for concern as to how they're actually looking at the application. I wish I had more time to go through all the documents that I provided, but I know I only have 3 minutes, unless you will grant me some additional time. But I will try to go into really the meat of what my concerns are. So if you look at some of the conditions that the staff has put together, I would just like you to consider adding some additional conditions to the application for approval. I would ask you in my report that I submitted to you to look at items 4, 5, 6, and 7, as well as 8. And these would be conditions of approval should you choose to move forward. I would encourage you, though, to consider perhaps delaying and continuing this hearing, because I believe there's still a lot of loose ends, as you can see, that probably need to be refined. I don't know that the request for the use of the property is in question. It's more about making sure that everything gets tied up correctly, so that when you do make a decision, that you feel very comfortable that the decision is in the best interest of the residents of Elbert County. But one of the things I would do on number 4, I don't know if you saw the letter from Core Cooperative, but they are requiring that existing overhead electrical lines be buried. I would suggest that, as you can see under my condition, that all overhead lines be buried before pulling any building permit, just to make sure that everything is done correctly. Because as you know, and I know, once these approvals happen, there's no real follow-up on how it's going to occur as a development. It could be 10 years, it could be 5 years.
Commissioner, just 3 minutes.
So,
I'll give you a few minutes.
okay, thank you. Number 5 is the private and public road design. It does seem that they want to build it to the standards of the county, which I think is fantastic. The question is, who's going to approve it? Who's actually going to go out there and inspect it to make sure that it was designed and built to the standards of the county? I have a concern, if you could put up the slide where the colored lines are for the roads. As you can see, even the staff shows a private road, but it also says access easements. There are 3 lots that are going to be accessed through an easement, which is not to the standards of the private road. I talked to the fire department. They're concerned about the weight of the equipment. It's that if should there be snow or should there be rain and there should be mud, how are they going to make the turnaround as it pertains to getting into those lots? And so the cul-de-sac, if in fact it is meeting the standards, it seems to not really go towards the end of the property. It seems to stop somewhat 3/4 of the property. So these are the things that I would ask you to consider. The other thing you mentioned briefly about, doing some type of covenants. I think that's viable, a suggestion, because who's going to maintain this road? Who's going to pay for the maintenance of this road? If in fact there's going to be 8 different owners, how are they going to make sure that they're going to cover the cost of maintaining the road if there's no covenants to suggest that everyone must pay to improve this road? And again, while today it sounds like it's a great family project, we know when it comes to land use and zoning, the value of this property will continue to go up. And so there may be a time where it is no longer a need for a family, a nice development, because of the cost of living that's going on as well. The other thing is there's a couple of uses by right that are currently in the zoning. I would ask you to consider making those uses by special review, not eliminating the rights, but making them uses by special review. As you can see in my report, I'm including hemp production, religious institutions, cemeteries, schools, private or public, a fire station, a law enforcement station, park and rec area, public. These all uses would increase the traffic to this property. These are currently uses by right. So I would encourage you to evaluate whether these should be better placed on uses by special review, because they did not provide you with a traffic study, and rightfully so. But if these uses maintain themselves as uses by right, you might find yourself in a situation where it could cause more conflict between the property owners and the county. The last request I would have is that there is currently a gate that used to have an easement to the property off of Ponderosa. That gate is still there and it's being opened and used. It's being used through an access through another lot. I would suggest that you make it a condition that that gate be permanently removed and just put a permanent fence so that there's no construction traffic coming in and out of that property that is being done inappropriately. Those are my observations as I looked at them. I tried to discuss this with the staff. The staff just didn't seem to be interested in talking to these issues with me when I tried to approach them. I was not able to go to the planning hearing because of other obligations, but I do believe that perhaps it would be wise for you to consider just continuing the application until these other issues are resolved so that you don't have more questions in the future. Thank you very much. Oh, yes, I talked about the easements. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any public comment at this time? Ms. Edstrom.
Diana Edstrom, 26060 County Road 41, Elbert. I would ask that if the board is going to continue this, that you make public what Mr. Lopez was just talking about so everybody in this room can comment on it if necessary, especially if it's for a decision purpose. I also don't understand how you can request a property owner to put an easement in for a future road when he's on a private road right now, and that would give access to their own private road. I mean, is that legal? Thank you.
Do we have any other public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do we have any questions or comments? Yeah. I'd invite Mr. Roach up to, if you'd like to respond to the public comment pieces.
Appreciate the comments. Thank you. Appreciate you sharing those. A couple, I just jotted down just a couple notes. I may not respond to every single one because I didn't necessarily get them all written down, but the gate that was mentioned there, that's a gate that is not being used by any construction traffic. It was brought up at Planning Commission like, oh, we saw somebody using that gate. We don't use that gate. Nobody in our construction team uses that gate. Nobody in the owner team uses that gate. And when we talked with the neighbor that actually lived kind of visual distance, she said, oh, I saw it was it was CenturyLink that used the gate. So it was being used by a utility company that does have a valid utility easement in that area. And so that's maybe just a clarity. We are not using that gate, not planning to use that gate. Whether or not that gate should be replaced with fence is probably a discussion we should have with the neighbor that's connected to that on the other side. That's a good question. There's not a road there, so.
I believe from the file that the actual easement was vacated. So if anybody's using it, they're either with permission or trespassing on somebody else's private property.
So another question is just on the access to all the different lots and the cul-de-sacs and whether that, I believe in our conversations with the staff, no more than 2 lots can be accessed off of driveways, right? So you can't have like 4 lots all off of driveways. That lot 3 does have access off the private road. So you only in this case have lot 1 and lot 4 that are accessing via a driveway over an easement rather than direct access off the private road. So we have fulfilled all the standards of access there. That allows both us and a private driveway, which then allows fire to access any of those individual lots should a situation come up. So I believe we'd addressed kind of the access to each lot situation on that. So there you go. We are working with CORE on the power. We're going to follow their recommendations. If they recommend that we go underground, we're going to kind of go along with that. They may change their recommendation based on final design, and we'd probably like to have the liberty to be able to do what they follow. Currently, there is overhead power. We plan to put underground power in, so that is our plan, but it would be probably nice to just be allowed to kind of follow whatever, CORE finally dictates in their plan. So that would be probably kind of our thoughts and comments there.
Yeah, just on the last letter from the fire marshal, the 2 points were the 100-foot turnaround, which is 100-foot diameter, 50-foot radius, that is there. And then I believe it was either you or staff had mentioned the other question was fire flow, and you were paying
the 1,000
cash in lieu of
that's right. Yep, and that'll be paid, whatever, right before we record. So,
questions for?
Yeah, the payment and all that's interesting, but I do like Mr. Lopez's comment about you need to have a formal acceptance by the fire district that you're complying with whatever the rules are.
That was news to me that fire has not. I mean, they saw this on multiple referrals and gave their consent to CDS to this proposal.
I apologize for using the wrong verbiage. The word generally should not have been used in front of approved. They approved that with the fire flow requirements being met, and as well as the diameter being depicted on the exhibit. Yeah.
Okay.
And they did, the letter did request that they be made conditions. So they're satisfied, but just to recognize the fire department's request, those should be included as conditions, and if they've been satisfied.
They are.
Were they? Okay.
Does it need to be conditioned if it's already included in the most recent drawing that we have? That's, I guess, my question to the board. And rather the red line, the 100-foot diameter is there on the drawing. And as well, I use a more broad
Yeah.
statement that is within that range that the fire flow is
I'm
taken
good with
care
that.
So you're saying number 4 there has already been satisfied? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is the request to have the turnaround being depicted on the exhibit, that was already done. That was already completed. That was on the most recent revision that I had at the time that email was received.
And the fire flow requirements?
It's 1,040 per lot.
That's it? There's no volumetric, that's just a cash in lieu of?
There's 4 options between sprinkler the buildings, provide a cistern on the property, or fire hydrants, I believe, which should be on the document you're looking at right now.
It's hard to put hydrants on without a
We
centralized.
support condition number 4 and will be providing cash in lieu prior to recordation.
Yeah, and again, I appreciate the discussion on the easement. That, to me, is just tremendously important for the future. You can certainly say, no, this isn't to get you over the barrel, but we've got to be comfortable that there's.
If it's an
future
emergency
safety.
access easement and not where neighbors come like driving through and all that, then that's great. So.
Okay. The building permits require fire to have adequate access to a building site, so before construction begins.
That's right.
So,
And each home will have their driveway and
Right,
kind of
and-
go through that process with fire.
and I understand the concerns, Mr. Lopez, that you brought up, but this was a 3,000-foot driveway at one point, so as long as the driveways are to driveway standard and Public Works, your question is, who looks at these? Our Public Works Department, whether it's a private road or a public road, maintain the same standards?
And you got to get a building permit from the Public
Yes,
Works?
already in touch with Kyrie and Rory and their team about that and the specs and having a contractor put that in and have it inspected. So.
And then the other is, I would like to see a set of covenants filed that at least address maintenance of the private road in perpetuity, and if anything, if there's a falling out or amongst the family, and I hope there isn't, it's better to have that documented now than to have one person left holding the bag or 7 other owners then trying to figure out how to maintain a road after the fact. So if you'd accept a condition to file covenants that cover the private road maintenance and the
I'm assuming those
emergency
can be
access
relatively
easement.
basic, doesn't need an attorney to draw them up or anything, but we'd be happy.
Okay. Yeah, and I think we have to defer to, or should defer in this case, to CORE for what's appropriate for provision of power in a safe manner. So I do expect that they will, and they have said that underground for the new, but
And that's the design that we're currently working with them. So.
anything else?
No, I don't think so. The fire department is the big one for me, is to make sure that they've signed off on it. And
So really, this is looking at the newest subdivision next to the oldest subdivision in the county, which is
Oh, really? Oh.
itself. So I would accept a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion, we approve Rockhaven rezone final plat case PD-21-0069 and FP-21-0071.
With the conditions as
With the
presented and discussed.
Yeah, with the conditions as presented and discussed.
and with the addition of the other?
Yeah.
Okay,
Those two.
second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve the application as presented with the conditions. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. I'd take a motion to close public hearing on this item.
Mr. Chairman, I move we close the hearing on Rockhaven PD-21-0069 and FP-21-0071.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to close public hearing on the Rockhaven rezone and plating. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay, we're out of public hearing. I'm going to call a recess until 2:40 for comfort breaks. We've been at this for an hour. All righty. Greg, do we have everybody we need to begin the hearing? All righty. With that then, the time is 2:41. We'll call the meeting back to order. Before we open the hearing on Kiowa Outdoor Adventures, I know Mr. Pettit had a comment.
Yeah, I'm going to be recusing myself from this one for the Kiowa Outdoor Special Use by Review, just for the fact, the business relationships I have with the applicant and things like that. So I'm going to recuse myself.
Thank you. So Commissioner Pettit won't be part of conversation or discussion or voting on this.
I guess it's up to me to open the meeting.
Yeah, and just a point for those there to approve an application requires a majority vote. So with two commissioners, that's, a split vote is a no vote, but I just want to make sure that's, folks are aware. So with that, I would accept a motion to open a hearing for the Kiowa Outdoor Adventures, use by special review 21-0079.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we open the Kiowa Outdoor Adventure Special Use Review and EDZ Site Development Plan cases SU 21-0079 and EZS 22-0009.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second to open the hearing for Kiowa Outdoor Adventure. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're in public hearing. So same process, different presenter. Greg?
Thank you. My name is Greg Thompson. I am the Community and Development Services Director for Elbert County and presenting on the Kiowa Outdoor Adventure. There's two different cases for you to consider with this particular application. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. To orient you to the site, this property is immediately west of Kiowa in the western portion of the county. The application for the proposal was submitted in the end of November. Planning Commission had a hearing on a portion of this application on April 5. The Board of County Commissioners hearing is today on the 27th. The first portion of the application, the special use review, that is considered by both the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners is for basically 1/3 of the property. It's a campground proposal. Then the EDZ proposal, that's only the Board of County Commissioners review, is for the RV and boat storage. And then the second portion of that is the private recreational facility, which consists of a pool and a putt-putt. The landowners, the applicants are present, Nikki and Deborah Ullum. The location of the property is located southwest of State Highway 86 and County Road 134. Property size is 25 acres. The property zoning is A2. It is located in that economic development zone as well. So to orient you a little bit more to the site, Kiowa is on the eastern portion of the slide, and then outlined in red is the subject 25-acre property. Again, State Highway 86 is immediately north of the property, and to the east and southeast is County Road 134. Zoning on the property, as mentioned, is A2. Surrounding zoning is generally agricultural, although the property immediately to the south of the property is zoned AR. Site plan for you on this slide identifies those three uses. The campground, which was considered by the Planning Commission, is on the southern portion of the site. It has RV parking and then also 5 basically small unit cabins, if you will. The RV and boat storage is on the western portion of the site, and then the rec area or the recreation area, including the putt-putt and the swimming pool, are on the eastern portion of the site. The access to the property comes off of 134 on the east side of the site. Referrals went out to a variety of folks. Core Electric, the applicant provided an easement to them that should have been done as part of the subdivision but was not, so they took care of that. Division of Water Resources, Kiowa Conservation District indicated mulch and seed. Any disturbed soil would be something that would be required to be done. Elbert County Public Health indicated engineered septic would be needed, and that potentially more than one septic system would be required as well. Public Works, Fire, Kiowa Building Department, and Planning also responded. Planning noted that additional trees and a lighting plan would be required, and conditions of approval addressed that. The criteria for you to consider are the same criteria, whether it's the EDZ site plan or the special use review. The first one talks about compatibility with the surrounding area and neighborhood. Use would not have an undue burden on infrastructure that would be in the area as well. Wouldn't be a traffic congestion issue. Would not cause any significant air, odor, water, noise, or light pollution. And a condition of approval addressed that light portion of that with a lighting plan that would be provided by the applicant. Sanitation requirements mention that the septic system needs to be engineered, and then perhaps more than one needs to be provided. The use would be adequately landscaped, buffered, and screened. There was some conversation about that at the Planning Commission. Ultimately, they went with the recommendation as presented to add some additional trees on the southern portion of the site and group them more than have them, every 100 or 140 foot. That the use would not be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the county or residents, and that supplemental standards are met for the specific uses. The only use on this that has a supplemental standard is the campground, and the campground needs to meet all setbacks, which it does. So that supplemental standard is being met. Recommended that the following findings are met: that the proposal is in general conformance with the comprehensive plan, meets the criteria for approval in the zoning regulations. The subdivision regulations are not relevant. They're not proposing any subdivision on this particular property. The proposal is compatible with existing and allowable uses in the area. The proposal would not have significant impacts on the health, safety, and welfare. So the site plan back up just to reorient you to that site. So the Planning Commission recommended conditional approval of the special use review for the campground use, which is on the southern portion of the site. And because there's two different applications that we're considering, the staff recommends conditional approval of the site development plan for the RV and boat storage portion and the private recreational uses. And the conditions are listed here. I'll run through them quickly. The sign would be removed within 7 days. All fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and the exhibits, SUR exhibit is recorded. Makes sense to have the site development plan exhibit as well recorded. And that recordation occurs within 180 days. The access permit would be updated to reflect the other proposed uses on the property. The applicant would provide a lighting plan that would basically comply with the county rules and regulations and try to give some direction to the applicant in terms of those security lights that might be appropriate as well. Number 6 talks about that engineered septic design being provided for the site. Number 7, adding a minimum of 2 more trees and having that grouped, kind of more naturalized look for the trees rather than a static one every certain amount of feet. 8, the county would verify all conditions of approval that are met prior to operation. And 9, that potential traffic impacts would be addressed with CDOT, and the developer would be responsible to address any needed improvements. Those could include additional signage or that type of thing. It's not expected that there would be required turnout lanes, but just letting folks know as they might be coming over that hill that there is a street in that area with some somewhat slower moving vehicles. Be happy to answer any questions you have. The applicant is here as well.
Thank you, Greg. Do we have any questions for staff at this time? Oh, sorry, Rick. Any questions for staff at this time?
No, I'll hear the applicant.
Okay. Yeah, I'd invite the applicant up. Ms. Olam, if you could give your name, address for the record.
Debbie Ullum. My address is 11195 Copper Canyon Circle, Kiowa, Colorado 80117. As it's been presented, I don't have any problems with what Greg has recommended on either the special use or the EDZ application, other than 4 and 9. On condition 4, they're asking that the permit be amended, and the traffic study was done by Kimley Horn, and Curtis Rowe has confirmed. He was unable to attend today to answer questions, but he did confirm in his report, if you go through the whole report, it does state in there that the amenities are campground amenities and the traffic for them was included. So I don't feel like that needs to be amended. The RV and campground was listed on the highway permit, and it does call in for those numbers. Also on number 9, that was new to me. I didn't know about that. CDOT did not make any recommendations in the referral packet. So I would ask I just am not sure where that leaves us.
I will ask staff.
Yeah, because I didn't realize that. And if they want like a turn sign or I mean, we're not putting any signs up by the road, so otherwise I don't have a problem with what was presented.
And we'll ask in a moment. I was assuming from what was briefed, potentially a traffic entering highway type warning sign, if CDOT required such a thing.
Yeah, it was not in CDOT's referral stuff.
Okay.
So that's news to me. And like I said, Kimley Horn didn't recommend that there be any new signage.
Okay. Did you have other things you wanted to?
No.
Okay. Do you have questions for?
I was just looking at the conditions of approval. It said 2 or more trees, and then I look at the map here, and there's a lot more trees than 2. What's the difference?
They want 2 more trees.
Full stop. Okay.
I will give them 2 more trees than what I've already given them, if that's what they want. Don't have a problem with that.
2 more than what? Than what you have on the map?
Evidently, yes.
Okay.
That's the condition. So 2 additional based to what's on the site.
You accept that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to back up to bigger picture. I mean, the whole concept behind the EDZ was to promote some economic activity within the county. So could you just kind of talk about what you envision happening there? I've got a couple of specific questions, but I'd really we didn't really brief what this is and what.
So our intention was, first and foremost, was the campground. Excuse me. We wanted, there's no place to stay in town. You have company come and they have to commute from Castle Rock or Parker. So we thought if we did 4 or 5, what they call a tiny house on wheels, and they would be available for a nightly rental. They will not stay over the 29 days that is stipulated. So it's not like a year-long rental, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So then you could have your family come stay there, whatever. The campground 10 of the sites will be all electrical. They have full hookups, so to speak, water and electrical. There is a dump station. There's been talk about whether or not we could let people come dump. They're traveling through and they want to dump. If, in fact, our system number-wise can handle it based on what the Department of Health tells us, then yes, we could do that. If not, it will be dictated by the Department of Health.
Okay, that was one of my specific ones, because
Yeah.
the application said it would handle the 10 full-service hookups, but I can envision people coming in with full water tanks.
Right,
that want to dump on the way out.
if we go, if you go a week and you don't have anybody in 10 of those hookups, you can take a dump. Somebody can come in there and dump their camper. So that could happen. As for the other sites, they will be, they'll still have a pad and be an improved site. There's no campfires. There is 2 gas pits that are proposed that would be up near the building. There's only really 1 building per se on the property, proposed. The building would have bathroom facilities, and that's when the other septic may have to be involved, especially if we add a laundry hookup in there. So it would not be like a laundromat. That's not the idea. You are camping there. It is your private amenity. So that would be sodded around the area by the building, but other than that, you'll have pathways for walking stuff, pathways around the property. You have field fence all the way around the property to contain children and animals. And that's our hope that they would not do that. The RV and boat storage would have 6-foot chain link fence with the privacy slats woven through it. We put it down over there primarily to help as a buffer and noise. We don't want the campers, nobody wants to camp next to a highway, I would be honest. So we did put a putt-putt area in there. It is not a grass sprinklered area. It is an AstroTurf putt-putt little stations. There will be a playground for the kids, picnic tables scattered around if you're camping.
You said the possibility of a pool.
Yeah, so the long-term goal would be to have a pool. That is why originally so there are 2 well permits attached to this property. The very first one was in the Lower Dawson. It did not, when those determinations were made and adjudications and replacement plans and all of that, the Dawson wells were not included for recreational use. So instead we moved to a Denver well, and the Denver well is included for recreational use.
Anything for Debbie? No. Okay, thank you. And we might have you back up after.
I just want to ask staff a question. This is in the EDZ corridor. Why do we have an SUR and an EDZ? Why have we got the 2 presentations?
Because the campground use is not something that's specifically permitted in the EDZ, so it is allowed in the AR zone. So did one application to address that use and another application to address the other 2 uses.
Which is really interesting because you guys do include several other things in EDZ that would be very similar. So, but it is not called out. So,
yeah.
When I started this at my pre-app meeting, they felt like that was the best, was to do an SUR.
I guess that broadly the EDZ was to encompass almost any economic activity, so
that was the reason for my question, yes.
The checking of the boxes, but all right, thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Greg, did you want to expand a little on that 9th condition of approval? I just want to make sure if we move forward that everybody understands what we're actually asking the
Yeah,
applicant to sign up for.
So basically, as 134 comes out onto 86, there is limited sight distance towards the west. It meets the standard, barely, but it meets the standard. So I think that was kind of the first reaction and iteration. I think the idea was to confirm that there's not any additional, I'll call it improvements, but really what we're talking about is probably additional signage that calls attention to there is a county road just over the top of the crest of this hill, and that potentially there's some relatively slower traffic that's coming out. Not necessarily a car or a truck, but might have something that's being towed along behind and or an RV. So I think it's worth having something in there that would allow some additional thought and or analysis to that. After the traffic study came in, the county engineer had reviewed and offered some comments on that. I'm kind of mirroring or parroting his comments and reaction to that. So if it's deemed necessary, I wanted to make sure that that was something that was addressed. If it's not deemed necessary, then so be it. But I'd rather have something in there that allowed some flexibility from the county's perspective.
I was going to say, if there's a level of confidence that we're not talking turn lanes or major construction and just signage, it's probably more appropriate that we ask the applicant to be responsible for.
That was the nature of the
additional
signage,
not just anything that comes down the pike. If there were more development further down 134 that triggered a need for a turn lane that's not necessary now because of what they're proposing, I don't think it's fair to leave that as an open-ended.
Yeah, specifically this intersection was what was being looked at, thought about, and signage was, the question at hand.
Okay, thank you. With that, unless you have questions, we'll open it up for public comment.
No, my question was very similar to what you just asked, Ed. This could be interpreted 2 or 3 different ways. I think we need to solidify what that, like Chris's comment about turn lanes and things like that. And if it's limited to signage or something like that, I think you need to, did we have our outside engineer look at this? McKinley Horn?
Yeah, so this is based on his comments and reactions.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like you to tighten that up a little bit. And then we need public comment, I guess.
Yep. And on the other number 4, just before we open for public comment, if Kimberly Horn did consider all the potential uses, I think the condition would just be, let's have Kimberly Horn confirm that, and there's no additional work to be done, just if they're not here at this meeting to speak for themselves. So.
Yeah, there was, in the traffic study, there was mention of mini warehouses. There's not many warehouses here, but I think they were using the RV and...
The equivalent
yes,
traffic
exactly.
load. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you. Oh, so with that, I'd open now for public comment. Deidre House, you had signed up first, and we'll go through the list of those that signed and then open for the rest of the room.
Good afternoon again. This one is not about prairie dogs. So, my name is Deidre House. I live at 9448 County Road 134, Kiowa 80117. I had to write all this down because, you get a little bit older and you can't remember it all. But I live on County Road 134 along with several people who are present here today. We all have several concerns if the campground were to go in at the end of County Road 134. Safety is the main concern. First, as you guys were talking about on number 9, there are no turn lanes on Highway 86. If you're going westbound on 86, there is a hill that you cannot see over. So you are trying to turn left across the eastbound lane with a pickup and a fifth wheeler, or an RV. So you are turning not knowing what's coming over that hill. Okay, if you're going eastbound on 86, you have to make a right turn onto County Road 134. And this County Road 134 is barely a 2-lane dirt road. It has very deep culverts on both sides, not to mention everybody that's going eastbound is still going 60 miles per hour, no matter how many signs are up there. There's 3 signs that say, basically, slow down. There's a hill, the speed limit's going down, and there's a road coming in. People still don't slow down. I've gotten almost rear-ended so many times I can't even count them. At the stop sign that's on County Road 134 at Highway 86, there's a very steep downgrade. If the dirt is muddy or icy, you have a tendency to slide through that stop sign onto Highway 86. People who don't know this are going to slide right through it. Our concern is also for our personal and property safety. Campgrounds bring in a transient population. Now, I don't mean homeless people. I mean people that don't have a stake in the community. There'll be ATVs that speed down County Road 134 with no regard for anything, for any livestock that are out, for any goats that may get out, or a new puppy that got out and is exploring, or much less a person that's riding a horse on the county road on which they live. I asked one of the people who wants to open this campground, what if you don't make money? Will you just walk away and leave everything? He answered, yes, we would walk away. At least he was honest. How would you like to see an abandoned campground a couple times a day, much less that this abandoned campground will be the first thing that people see when they're driving into Kiowa? Not a good first impression for visitors or people who want to do business in Kiowa. The people who want to build this campground say it is to help during the county fair. That's only 2 weeks a year. The Cowboy Up is 1 week a year.
Commissioners, that's 3 minutes.
Can I finish?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. They say the kids in town are in need for something to do. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want my children hanging out at a campground. We return back to that transient population. They say it will bring more business to Kiowa, but only for a few weeks a year, the same few weeks that Kiowa already has that business. All in all, I feel this campground would not serve anyone well. It will cause more traffic on a county road that is not built for it. It may bring more crime to a residential neighborhood. Several of the people who live on this road are first responders. We know what will happen if this campground goes in. It will bring our property values down, especially those properties that are adjacent to this campground or across the road from it. How is this fair to us who live on this road? I feel it will cause a lot more grief than pleasure to a lot of people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, Susan Glenn, what's that? Okay, all right. Thank you. Chris Cross.
My name is Chris Cross. I live on 9747 County Road 134, and they propose to put this campground right behind my property. And my concerns are, and I've got about 7 of them and a few others, but real briefly that, she proposed to put a 4-foot fence on the property line. Well, if someone jumps over that fence, comes onto my property, antagonizes my dog, breaks into my shops, my garages, steals one of my cars because I leave my keys in there, I have a front gated system, then I'm going to be calling the police all the time. They're going to be wasting their time coming out constantly because I got people that want to jump the fence, go wander around, as we were told that, if they have their four-wheelers go zipping up and down 134, antagonize my dogs, it's just going to be a headache. My other thing is, as I said, the height of the fence is a big issue for me. If this gets proposed, I want a 10 or 12-foot fence, and that has to go from the corner of the building of 134 on that property all the way behind my property, all the way to the telephone poles, and all the way down to the Highway 86 just to keep the people in their contained areas. I don't see where 25 people are going to do a benefit for the county of Elbert County, making it a financial, upgrade to them. Our local roads are rough. Our one bridge, it seems like it's going to fall apart one day. It's got a half temporary side on one, barrier on one, and then the other side of the bridge looks like it's going to fall apart. So if that ever collapses, who's going to pay for that? The other things is the driveway, as we've been told, it's on a dirt road. If they start to wear down that driveway, who's going to be responsible of keeping that up? The wind damage, lately, because we have the El Nino, we've been experiencing at least 100-mile-an-hour winds lately. So, that's going to be damage that is going to come flying up into my property, because unfortunately it comes from the north to the south that winds, and then sometimes it goes from the south back to the north. It's just all crazy. I'm constantly picking trash up off my fence. Campgrounds, they say about, fires and all that. Well, there's going to be 2 fire pits in that place. If someone, out of these 25 people, someone's going to break the rules. They're not going to be perfect angels. If they light a fire in their campground and it breaks loose and goes up my property, then we got to call the fire department to put it out. Then who's going to pay for that damage? And last but least is, what's the bottom line of the benefit to Elbert County having this campground and this storage? There's 7 or 8 storage units around around the whole county within 10, 15 miles. We don't need another one. And when you're coming off Elbert or Elizabeth into Kiowa, you don't want to see storage and boats and whatever being stored. It just takes away the beauty of the country, the country line.
That's 3 minutes.
Okay. And I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Tanner Lint. Thank you.
My name's Tanner Lint. I live at 9652 Highway 86. I'm the property bordering to the west. Here's some details. I'm not going to hit them all, but we're going to hit the highlighted points. 2017, I purchased the property. In that purchase process, we discovered the fence line was about 10 feet onto the neighbor's property. But it had been like that, they told me, for 30 plus years, and it was because of 2 gas lines that ran there. Post-purchase, I tried to have the gas lines professionally located. They said one could be located. One, it was unable to be located. The EDZ passed shortly after that. I am in support of the EDZ. I like what it brings to the county, if it's done correctly, which is why we're all here. At the Jubilee subdivision community meeting, Tom Maroney, who handled Jubilee, I expressed my concerns about the fence and the gas line. He said, not a problem. This happens all the time where fence lines are not exactly on property lines. As a matter of fact, 2 of their other fences on the south side and on part of the east side are 10 feet on the county's property. No one had nefarious purposes when they were putting in fences. They were just putting in fences. So they granted me an easement for that fence line. As part of the Jubilee subdivision process, Commissioner Richardson, you asked them if anything came out of the community meeting, minutes 32 through 43, or 3243 through 3342 in that recorded meeting. Tom Maroney mentioned that there was the fence gas line issue with me. I wasn't able to attend that meeting. They stated that they had granted me an easement. Good to go. We'll move on. Basically starting on 7/30/2021, Debbie and her family had purchased the property. Talked to them about the gas easement, fence lines, issues like that. They felt like they were allowed to remove it, whether I objected to it or not, even with the easement, because of the verbiage of the easement. They, at that time, would not acknowledge my safety concerns. I have a lot of safety concerns. I actually lived in Grand Junction, just down the street from a house that exploded when a utilities crew hit a gas line in the street. That house was totally gone. Thankfully, no one was killed. The houses next to it were totally destroyed. So I'm a little sensitive to hitting gas lines. And they wouldn't discuss possible remedies. I sought some possible legal counsel. They said, you might actually have a case for adverse possession, where you take that land. I said, this seems a little extreme. It's going to change potentially their site improvement plan, things like that. It could change a whole lot about the property. Let's just be reasonable. Let's try to work it out. At the planning meeting, the Planning Commission told me they were not allowed to consider the easement or the potential adverse possession pursuit. They said I had to bring my concerns before you gentlemen. So that's what I'm doing here. After that planning meeting, Debbie and I spoke. We had a very productive talk at that time. She acknowledged the safety concerns and acknowledged that they didn't need to move the fence in order to make their operation possible. We spoke generally about mutually beneficial solutions, but didn't come to any agreements. I emailed Debbie the following day about that conversation, and she said, I think there's a way to work out this fence solution with your driveway, but as for now, we're honestly focused more about the county process. I understand that. Greg Thompson recommended that we work it out beforehand. That didn't happen. I understand logistics there, but at this point, there's no formal or informal agreement about the fence, and the gas line still has not been located. We're still not 100% sure it can be located. So what I would ask you as commissioners is two different options. One, we leave the fence where it is. They can change it to the styles they have talked about they want, things like that. The visual blocking slats, don't have any problems with that. The 4-foot fence, personally, I don't have a problem with that.
Commissioners, that's 3 minutes.
You're close to the bottom here.
Close to the bottom, and we're not going to go through all of it. But basically, and in exchange, because of the lay of the land, those supposed 4 trees on that west side, they're not going to visually block anything. We're going to get trees out there that are going to die because it's Colorado out here in the plains. So I said, as consolation, let's not even worry about those trees. We work out the fence. We don't worry about those trees. There was talk about potential snow drifting issues with those slats in that chain link. I said, I can back up 20 feet on my property and put a snow fence in. Let's work together. Let's do some common sense things on that portion of the property. I would also agree not to ever, we'd write up an agreement where there would never be a pursuit of adverse possession, never screw up any future plans or anything like that. And I'm from the construction industry. I've built a lot of fence. So if they wanted post holes in, give me a layout, give me specs. I'll drill the post holes for you wherever you want them on that existing fence line. Let's work this out like good neighbors. Option 2, if they wanted to move it, if they absolutely had to move it, but they've already got the earth moving equipment there for grading. So help me out by moving my driveway over a little bit that's kind of creeped onto that land. I'll forfeit the easement. Obviously, my preferred choice would be option 1, but just trying to do some common sense agreements. And it sounds like we're close. We just haven't gotten officially to that point. So that's what I'm bringing here.
Do we have anybody else present that would like to make comment? Sir, if I could get your name and address.
Todd Brown, 9770 County Road 134. We are to the south of the proposed site. We have a dual family residence. There's 3 generations of family members. I'm going to bring up one number to you, 72. That's the number of feet a vehicle traveling at 50 miles an hour takes every second. That's a 50-mile-an-hour zone at the crest of a hill. You heard that from staff. They made a recommendation. Number 9 was not proposed to the Planning Commission. That was not a recommendation. It was brought in after that. I think if the Planning Commission would have heard that recommendation, it would have proposed a longer discussion. I strongly recommend 72 feet for 1 second is a long distance. You add the normal reactionary gap. Reactionary time is 2 seconds for the average person. You have a large vehicle, 45 feet plus, making a left turn. You heard it from other residents. There's some major concerns. The number 9 is very vague. I'm not comfortable at all. I didn't sign up to speak. I did speak at the Planning Commission in length, but number 9 in itself brings a big concern for me. On its face value, you guys, before you even heard public comment, wanted that tightened up. I think that's enough. It is a major concern. There's also a 35-acre property that the new landowner is going to make a special permit on adjacent to this. He actually brought it up in the Planning Commission. He's actually going in and proposing some type of tiny house development. The use of that roadway is going to increase with that, even just that special permit. I don't know if he's applied yet, but that in itself, the traffic study was done on a Wednesday. It's not a good foundation to make a recommendation to move forward. I think we definitely probably need to delay. My concern is, I've been there 4 years. I've been in law enforcement 25 years. I can tell you what's going to happen is a person traveling on Highway 86 is going to strike that vehicle turning left. That vehicle turning left is at fault, but the person driving 50 miles an hour is going to be dead. So they're not really going to have a bone to fight with that person. It's going to cause a fatal accident. I strongly recommend that CDOT maybe weigh in a little bit more than that on that number 9. That's pretty much all I got to say. I wasn't planning on speaking, but that number 9 definitely is a big concern. Thanks.
Do we have any other public comment at this time?
Hello. My name is Linda Curran. I live at 5428 South Forest Hill Street in Littleton. I will be moving to the property with Mr. Cross within the next few months. And he is in Lot 1. As you know, this is recently subdivided. We had no idea that this was going to take place when he closed on the property in June, which you may or may not be aware of. So there were some bullet points that we had gone over which were of concern. And this neighbor right here covered them beautifully, very eloquently. I have to compliment you on that. One thing we'd like to step back, though, and ask about, because this was not covered in the planning committee or planning commission meeting, whatever it was called, was the lighting. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me get a little closer here. One thing that was noted, and I don't know which number it was the lighting, which we're concerned about. That wasn't covered in the planning commission meeting. Let's see where it's at. Number 8.
5.
Number 5. We don't know what that looks like, and we're kind of concerned about that since we are directly on the same big lot, on where those are going to be directed, if it's going to be coming into our property and disturbing our peace, as well as any noise level. I mean, obviously they're not having concerts there, but if you have a packed house, if you have 20 to 22 camp spots filled, plus the 4 houses, that's a lot of people, that's a lot of noise. There's a concern about that, which leads to the next thing, which Chris had already touched on, was the height of the fence. A 4-foot fence isn't going to do it to block any noise. Very concerned about trespassing his dogs, which are not friendly dogs. We do not want any issues. And if something were to happen, he's going to have to be involved. And, you know, if they have one of the dogs have to be put down because somebody trespassed from the campground, that's going to be a horrible day. That's why we were very concerned about the height of the fencing, any berm, or what the actual plan is to put around the property. So I think that covers everything that wasn't covered before. Thank you very much.
Diana Edstrom, 26060 County Road 41, Elbert. One of the things that nobody has addressed is that we do need this business. There's very little place to stay in Elbert. The only other campground is at Casey Jones, and the board there has just said they are not going to be expanding that campground, although it had been part of their original plan. There's so many more events that go on in this county besides the rodeo. You've got everything that goes on at Messer, 4-H, Stampede, multiple rodeos, horse events. There's no place for people to stay. And if Elbert County wants to grow, as I know the commissioners say they want it to do, there has to be a place for people to stay. It's going to be 450 new houses most likely going in Kiowa. Where are people going to stay when they come to visit? So I think it's a good business. It's something that we need. And as far as the EDZ goes, the board felt that that was a good enough plan to approve it and put it in the zoning, and all of 86 more or less is in the EDZ. You've got a batch plant, that's a cement batch plant that's going to be coming, and development is coming, and sadly, and I know you guys hear me say this, it's not rural like it used to be. The other thing is number 9 I was at the Planning Commission meeting. It was not discussed. It was not brought up. It was not on what the Planning Commission approved. And I don't believe it was even on the information on the county website until this morning. So the applicant hasn't even had a chance to look at that. CDOT and Road and Bridge, in regards to the roads, they made absolutely no recommendations, nothing about signs, anything at all. So the discussion of that isn't even something that CDOT, who has that purview of the state highway, wanted to do anything with. And as far as, and I'm sorry to bring up the fence thing, but I've looked at the easement agreement that Tom Maroney had drawn up. It has the wrong address for the applicant, doesn't even have the right address, and nowhere on that easement agreement or page 2 does it give any specific information as to where that fence is. The attachment that Mr. Maroney put on there is for the entire legal description of the 25 acres. And if the gentleman bought his property in 2017, he said that he knew his fence was not on his property, then this is not a big surprise. So again, I do think that this is a business that we need. And, I forgot to mention, I'm one of those transients that the people who don't want this have mentioned. I've camped all over the country. I've camped in national parks. I've camped at small campgrounds. There's no better place that I like to be than at a campground. You meet the nicest people, and people are there to enjoy themselves, not to go and maraud around the area. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comment at this time? Okay, seeing none, I would close public comment. And Debbie, I'd ask if you would like to address some of what we've heard.
Absolutely. So I tried to take notes during it, so if I've left anybody's stuff out, I apologize. I have no problem putting up a no ATV sign in the campground. I don't want them riding around in the campground. But I will tell you that I can drive down County Road 134 on a Saturday or Sunday, and I'm going to pass ATVs riding it now. It just happens. I don't have a problem with that. So I will I'm willing to put up a sign there. My son did, in fact, as he spoke at the community meeting, when she asked if it would be abandoned, I will tell you, he was a little taken back. We didn't pay over $400,000 for land to just let it sit. If it went belly up, you know what? I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to, as a realtor, I would hope that we're going to make money off the land someday. It didn't lose its value just because the campground didn't succeed. I do want to say, as for the fence, state law is fence out. I don't want my campers or their kids getting bit. I have agreed to a field fence with, they would have to be purposely trying to get into his property. It's not just the 2-year-old that ran off. So that was my goal. I also don't think that somebody who comes out here in a $100,000 camper to stay in a campground is going to go break into your garage, personally. And if someone breaks in, well, then yes, we do need the police, and that's what their job is. There will be a camp host on site. The deputy obviously could contact that camp host. The other thing is Tanner and I have worked at working out the fence situation, but I will tell you I don't think the fence situation belongs here. It's a civil matter. There was an easement recorded. I knew it when I bought it. Tanner knew about his fence. It is what it is. It doesn't belong here, and Tanner and I will work that out. There is one gas line that was located. We've not been able to locate the other one, and I have had professional people out there. I do want to say, absolutely, I don't have a problem with the lighting plan. We've talked to Greg about it. We will work with him on a lighting plan. That was brought up at the Planning Commission meeting, and we talked about it prior to that. Number 9 was not on the Planning Commission documents, and when I pulled up the BOCC packet yesterday and went through the approval conditions and pointed out the 3 items that were wrong, it was not on there. So to throw that at me at this meeting is completely unfair. I will tell you I went above and beyond and ordered a traffic study before it was ever asked for. I get it. I drive that road. I know. I'm not trying to make it worse, but I'm also trying to bring a need to the county. So I feel like I met the criteria. Kimley and Horn did a very thorough traffic study. They met with CDOT. CDOT had not 1 pass at this, but 2. My project went out for 2 referrals. Road and Bridge has had the opportunity. So for me to come here and then get number 9 just really doesn't feel fair.
Thank you. Do you have questions?
Just kind of a comment. We've approved 2 EDZs here in the last year and a half. They're just up the road from where this is.
Sure.
And one of the things that we were able to do is get the applicants to agree that they would work with their neighbor with respect to a privacy fence. And in both instances, they agreed to that. I want the business. I'm not trying to push that back, but neighbor relationships do have some value. And if you can commit to working out some kind of a privacy fence, if your neighbor wants that, I think that would be useful.
I would tell you that I did 300 feet of privacy fence 2 years ago when prices were not what they are, and it was over $11,000. Not in this project is that feasible for that side of the property. There is a large berm of trees on their side of the property. Those are their trees. They look great. They're beautiful. That was another buffer for where the campground would be. We are willing to, like Tanner said, those groups of trees over there on the south side, that's something Greg and I can work out to move those. Maybe it gives them more tree buffers. But I do not feel like at this stage I am willing to do a privacy fence. That expense of that would make it probably completely out of the realm.
Fire pits were brought up earlier. You said there would be.
So obviously if there's a burn ban or a stage 2 or whatever, they're not going to be on. Obviously, as a business, I would have business insurance. If somebody starts a fire and yes, they've checked into a campground and they've signed a document that says they know they can't do it, yes, they're absolutely up for prosecution. I got no problem. Call the sheriff's office. The fire department and I talked about it when we talked about the road surfaces. And they were thrilled with the idea that they were just 2 small gas fire pits and there was grass, green grass sprinklered all around it. It's not like they're out near the putt-putt We don't want them out there by the grass where somebody can fling a roasted marshmallow on flame. That was the whole idea, to put it where we put it.
Like I said, as we go through, I know there were comments about kids. I mean, we do have a campground on the fairgrounds fairly nearby, and it has not, you know, we don't have people in here every meeting complaining that there's kids out there getting into trouble, or there's criminals that are living there. I mean, we have experience with a campground nearby, and I'm not asking.
Well, and the
I'm
other,
not asking you to respond to that. I'm just
yeah,
kind of a comment
no,
on that one,
you know, well, and kids are going to be kids.
Yeah.
My kids probably
Yeah.
raised more heck. And then someone brought up the other proposed project on 134. I believe it was Mr. Brown. Absolutely, but ground sells all the time in that project. They haven't even done a pre-app. I don't know what they're going to do. All he did was present at the Planning Commission meeting.
You did address lighting. I think the requirement, I doubt anybody wants glare off the property, so setting a requirement to keep.
Yeah, like I
lighting
said, I have no
downcast
problem with that condition on there. My only concern was 4 and 9.
Okay.
And I would just, if nothing else, ask that 4, if you don't want to remove it, that's fine, but then I would ask that you amend it to read that Kimley Horn or Curtis Rowe, as the admin for them, confirms that all uses were considered in the access permit.
Yeah, that would be my desire, that we confirm what.
And that's fine. I have no problem with that.
I would say I do have some, generally when we have paved new roads that intersect with unpaved, we bring back about 2 car lengths of pavement to prevent gravel from being drug out onto the travel surface and prevent slide-ins. So, but not an engineer, not CDOT, not Public Works, but I would say that is one that I think needs to be, we do need to look at, just to make sure we're not setting up a dangerous intersection, at least from surface-wise, but I don't really have any more questions at this point for you.
Yeah, I want to vote for this, but if we can't resolve the fencing issue, to me that, and all I really want you to do is have an agreement with your neighbor that the fencing is acceptable, either from a security point of view, from a privacy point of view, or whatever. And whatever you can negotiate with them and get a sign deal that they can bring to the CDS. We've made the other people along the EDZ do that.
So are you in reference, I think you have to spell out what you're saying, because that's as broad as it is long. For me to have to agree to what someone wants.
Well, I have to agree to vote yes also. You need a damn fence.
Yeah, I got no problem with that. I will, a privacy fence and 2-strand barbed wire across the top. I got no problem with that. It will be.
If your neighbor accepts that, I'm fine with that.
I would submit, just consider that it's nobody's job to secure their neighbor's property from trespassing or break-ins. That's the property owner's responsibility. If they desire to put a 12-foot fence around their property and make it look like a prison compound, that's something they have to work. It's not the neighbor's job to prevent criminals from breaking in across their property into somebody else's home. So.
And I would say that, you know what, if we're going to start handing out things about what fencing they're going to put, then it needs to be in our regs. Greg and I went through this. We've talked about it. I mean, we can't say would, could, should. Give me a rule, I'll follow it. And that is hard. So I will absolutely do 4-foot field fence with 2-strand barbed wire across the top. I don't have a problem with it. I will keep the kids and the dogs from entering his property. So. Anything else from me?
Not at the moment. That's recess, I think. Yeah. Sorry, public comment was closed at this point. So. I'm not sure what they're trying to achieve with fence.
And you know, if the tree, you know, and if the trees are adequate to give the privacy, I'm cool with that. It's just that, you know, the whole idea of the EDZ is to treat people fairly, and that includes neighbors. And I want to vote yes. That's the thing that's driving me nuts. No, no, I understand. So are we in recess right now, or what are we?
Yeah.
I just want the neighbors to agree, that's all. That's, no, I know that. I agree with that. I agree with that. We're in a recess. Can I visit with you for a minute, please?
So, I mean, just formally, yeah, we're in recess. Alrighty, it's 3:50, we'll come out of recess. There was a little, I guess, I'd say, private discussion at the table, probably shouldn't have been private, really was just talking to Commissioner Thayer about, there were some things that he was uncomfortable with. Obviously, if he wanted a continuance, we needed to have very specific items that we were continuing for, not just, I've got some vague uncertainty, I mean, not to denigrate the Commissioner Thayer at all, just we had to very, very specific things that we needed to know in order to come to a vote if we were going to continue. But with that, if you want to address it.
Yeah, a couple things. One is I wanted to make sure I understood what the applicant is committing to with respect to the fence. One, and then I was just puzzled a little bit about item 9, and if you could explain that a little bit further for us, I'd appreciate it.
I'd be happy to. At the Planning Commission meeting, there was a variety of testimony that came forward from neighbors in the area that expressed some concern about the intersection of County Road 134 and State Highway 86, and the hill in particular that is immediately west of that site. Following that, I went out and I took a look at that property, thinking, you know, if I had an RV, if I had a fifth wheel attached to my vehicle, would that be something that is a potential concern? So following that, I contacted the county engineer and asked them to evaluate that intersection, see if they had any particular concerns. They came back with the information I testified to earlier, that it basically meets the threshold and standard right now. There's not a lot of wiggle room as you come up and over that hill. There are 3 signs. I apologize, I don't remember all the signs. One is that there's a downhill that's coming up. Another one identifies the intersection, and then I think the speed limit sign as well. So whether or not there's an additional signage that's there, or perhaps, you know, the speed needs to be evaluated at that point, maybe moved back a little bit further. I'm not sure what all that choice and decision might be, but I wanted to make sure that that is something that is evaluated as fully and completely as possible. There is going to be 2 different uses on this property that would have those type of vehicles. You have campground, and you have with RVs and such, and then you have RV and boat storage and parking. So I wanted to make sure that that intersection from a health, safety, welfare standpoint is well addressed to the greatest extent possible. So that was some of the language that was used, was fairly generic and intentionally generic. We could tighten that up a little bit. It said only State Highway 86. I think if we focus that more on the intersection for State Highway 86 and County Road 134, that would make a lot of sense. So we could, you know, finagle what that language was, but just wanted to make sure that that all involved, including CDOT, is okay with what's this use and that intersection use for those vehicles.
I appreciate that, and an open-ended condition when we're asking somebody to commit to something that's unclear. I'm happy if we're not expecting anything more than potentially signage, that if that's acceptable, if there's one road, if there's a highway sign that needs to be paved for, that's different than, you know, potentially there's paving, turn lanes, or signalization required. You're running the gamut of a couple of $100,000 to $800,000 in that, and that's just too vague to say anything at any time might be needed. But if it's potential signage, I don't think that's unreasonable if it's tied to a need that's generated at that location.
Yeah, I did come up with some modified language if that's something that the board would be interested in hearing. That tried to focus it to the intersection and then also to the signage, you know, element. Potential traffic impacts at the State Highway 86 and County Road 134 intersection will be addressed with CDOT, and the developer will be responsible to address any needed signage improvements.
is this appropriate?
Well, how's it appropriate? You get to speak right now.
Because she is the applicant and we're considering her application, public comment has been taken and closed. Debbie, and to your point, I was going to make the comment, I mean, we have to be very careful in this room to, essentially, I would say, stay in our lanes. We're not traffic engineers, Greg, you're not. We've referred it to CDOT twice, Public Works, our own engineers. It's really not appropriate to continue to what if. I mean, we could say what if, the Russians parachuted into the middle of that property and attacked their neighbors. We can't protect against that. And I'm not saying it's that wild. I just, like I said, I think that we refer for a reason. We've gotten our technical referrals back. They didn't indicate any additional needs. So.
Well, this tries to reflect the needs that were identified after the Planning Commission meeting when
by
the county
whom?
engineer responded.
And he responded and said the county engineer responded afterwards and did not identify any other needs.
It was included as part of your packet when it went out about a week ago. There was a discussion basically that a review of the posted speed limits could be conducted with regulatory speed signing to reduce speeds through the intersection. So potentially signage adjustments that would need to be reviewed and approved by CDOT as County Road, 86 is a state highway. Performance of the intersection will depend on actual vehicle speeds and would need to be basically identified over time. So on actual vehicle speeds and the judgment and response of the individual drivers, as such, the intersection should be monitored for actual performance after the development occurs. So I gleaned from that, that there could potentially be, through a traffic, speed study, that there might need to be some adjustments made from that. Okay. That was something that was absolutely added after Planning Commission because of the comments that were received at Planning Commission.
And I would say it is not uncommon after a road, even a new road is constructed, to have speed studies done to determine if there's areas where things need to be adjusted. But, okay.
And I would say that I do agree that probably the speed limit sign would be much better on the other side of the hill. I have no problem with that, but I do have a problem with a new condition being presented to me at a hearing.
Understood. I don't disagree. Based on that, Grant, did you have a motion you wanted to make, and we can make a motion and continue to discuss?
Yeah, the fencing is still an issue for me. The 4-foot fence with the 2 barbed wires on top of it, I find that acceptable, but I don't see that in here anywhere. Is that that does provide for security, and I understand the dog question and things like that, but if that's what you need to do, that'll be fine. So what do we do with this number 9? Do we take it out, or we modify it, or what do we do?
I think, if it's staff concern, I think the onus is on us to request a speed study. It has to be done. You can't do such a study until the improvement is made, because there's no change to study. I think, the onus on us for public safety is, if approved, that a study will be conducted after a facility is installed or constructed or developed, because otherwise we're asking to make an accommodation to something that hasn't happened yet.
So how does that work for you, Greg?
I think it makes perfect sense to do that after the use is in place, and you have a better sense of how that intersection is performing. To the extent that something needs to be done right now, I don't think it needs to be done, but over the course of development, and as that occurs and it starts getting used, it's, in my opinion, worth keeping track of and analyzing and making sure there's not any additional concerns.
Can't
I
make a
don't think
condition
it
of
would be a
approval
condition
of.
on my end.
Yeah, I think,
So,
as I say, we can't set a condition of approval
I mean, that's
on
a
something
CDOT
that
thing.
can't be done
If I may,
until after.
the county is not forestalled from doing a traffic study or a safety study or a speed study at any point in the future prior to or after construction. So,
on any road or any subdivision.
so I'm not sure that that's,
Yeah, to me, this is more staff direction than it is a condition.
Okay, what? One is, what do you?
It's 4-foot field fencing with barbed wire.
Okay, what's field fencing?
It's the,
Woven wire is good enough. We have I'm an immigrant, so I have poor English.
to specify to specify that as the fencing that is used.
Yeah, we need to,
I would like it called out in detail as to what the requirement is. There is security fence around the storage area, and that is separate. Now, the perimeter fence would be 4-foot field fence, starting with the smaller squares, getting to the bigger, with another 2 strands of barbed wire, trying to, what did you say, how high? So it'll be about 5.5 feet tall.
we need to say that in here somewhere.
Yes.
You're obligated to build that fence.
I have no problem with that as long as you call it out in detail what is required.
And I'm good with that.
We need to,
Yeah, I would. Do we have anything else that?
that's it. For
Okay,
me.
yeah.
Now that I
Let's,
understand what we're trying to do with time,
if,
I'm cool with
if
that.
Grant and Debbie and Greg, if you could huddle over the wording of that as a condition in replace of 9. And I think we discussed earlier that 4 needs to be just confirmation that the permitting,
From the
access
traffic
permitting is complete.
traffic company.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, let's recess until 4:20 and work on that.
I need the fence.
Your battery must be dead.
Alrighty, it's 4:21. We're going to come back out of recess. It's been a long day, and apparently this is the only microphone still working to record and stream, so we'll pass it around. I know there were some adjustments to conditions of approval. I would just ask the applicant if these are the conditions, would you find them acceptable? Thank you. I'd accept a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the Kiowa Outdoor Adventure SU 21-0079 with the applicant accepting the modified conditions of approval.
I'll second, and then do you have any comments before a vote?
Each one of these things, and I understand the frustration of the applicant and some of the citizens, the EDZ and economic development things, each one of them is unique in some way, and sometimes it takes us a long time sometimes, to work out the details, and I think we have.
All righty, thank you. I know this has been a long time getting to this position, and the EDZs are a little bit different because the actual site plan piece is worked in public hearing. Generally, it's a very technical review that's between staff and the applicant, and any technical referral agencies. But I know there were quite a few concerns that were brought up, and there were some positives mentioned. Again, I didn't think everybody's got, we can't eliminate all danger, but the intersection is something that we as a county are going to have to monitor and look at. What type of people will this type of business attract is I think a little unfair, but we have a pretty good history of what a campground brings. We have a small one at the fairgrounds that it doesn't bring problems to the area that have been tremendous. And in fact, it's provided a tremendous amenity for some folks. Nobody wants anybody trespassing on people's private property. There's a lot of discussion about fencing, but frankly, if you have mean dogs or dangerous dogs, it's not your neighbor's problem to keep them on your property or keep others from entering your property. That's a decision that has been made. We can't argue that it's going to have a small economic impact or no economic impact and then say it's going to have a huge impact on infrastructure and bridges and everything else around. Those are kind of arguing both sides as a negative. There is no place to stay in this county. There's some bed and breakfasts. There's a small motor court motel in Semla. There's nothing in Kiowa. There's really nothing in Elizabeth. If this brings a few people to town to stay for short periods of time, there's a net benefit there. This is a pretty area and people drive through it. There's a lot of folks that drive the state highways and stay off the interstates, and I don't blame them for that. So With that,
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I need to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do I need to modify my motion to include the EDZ site plan, or would that be a second motion?
I think we can take those as one if you want to make a friendly amendment to the.
I apologize for not doing this properly in the first place. I would like to modify my motion to include the EDZ site development plan, which includes EZS 22-0009.
Thank you. My second still holds. So anyway, I just think what's been demonstrated throughout, if there are concerns with how it will be operated or whether people using this facility are going to be under some sort of control, I think Ms. Ullum has clearly demonstrated that she has the backbone to tell people to stop doing things that aren't correct. So we're a community, and this is, EDC is a little bit different because we're talking about very specifics to starting a business. It's not just a rezone where a laundry list of things can happen. This is a very specific ask, and they've got a very specific plan. So with that, I would ask for a vote.
Aye.
Aye. And we have, so 2 ayes, and the motion passes. I'd accept a motion to close public hearing on this item.
So moved.
I have a motion to close public hearing. I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Hearing is closed. There being no more business before us today, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. I second. All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're adjourned.